A new Middle East may be upon us tonight as Israel steps into its prophetic destiny. Welcome to this TBN special report, Israel at War. I'm Erick Stakelbeck, and Israel's defense minister said earlier today that the Israel Defense Forces are about to target, quote, very significant sites in the Iranian capital, Tehran, with clear warnings for civilians to evacuate. His words were blunt. The only negotiations underway, he said, are between Israeli Air Force missiles and the Iranian regime of dictatorship. This on day 5 of Israel's Operation Rising Lion, a stunning military offensive that has left Iran's regime reeling. And the plot continues to thicken. On Monday, President Trump left the G7 summit in Canada early and returned to Washington, heading straight to the Situation Room. His goal? Not a ceasefire, not a truce, but a, quote, real end to this conflict and an unconditional surrender on the part of Iran. The president is weighing major military options, including the possibility of joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites. He also issued a sharp warning to Tehran on Truth Social, calling Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei an easy target and signaling that U.S. patience is running thin. Over 30 U.S. aerial refueling tankers have reportedly been rushed to the region, and the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group is now positioned for action. These moves give President Trump and CENTCOM options, up to and including U.S. fighter jets supporting Israel's campaign from the skies. But for now, Israel is carrying out the bulk of this war alone, and they're doing it with clarity and conviction. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his military has already crippled 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, and more strikes are coming. But the question now facing President Trump is critical. Does the United States move from defense to offense and join Israel in delivering a final blow to Iran's nuclear threat? Over the next hour, we'll be joined live by guests in Washington, D.C. and Israel to break down what's happening, what comes next, why it matters to you, and how we can pray. We begin, as always, in Jerusalem with our TBN Israel correspondent, Yair Pinto. Yair, thanks for joining us. I know you've been in and out of bomb shelters the past few days with your family. The sirens have been blaring. Now the Iranian regime is vowing to target Israel with missiles, quote, without interruption. Yair, set the scene for us, what it's like on the ground in Israel right now as this Iranian onslaught continues.
Yes, Eric. So Israel created this multi-layer alert system for the civilian and for all the people that are in the country now. So we get this alarm of get ready for a missile attack in your area within 30 minutes. Then after 30 minutes, we get an alarm within 10 minutes, a missile is imminent in your area. And then the alarm sirens start, and we have 1 minute to seek the bomb shelter. So Israel is really geared up into being close to bomb shelters, being in protected areas, and the whole country is ready for an impact, especially in the central areas of Tel Aviv. And we know that the missiles are penetrating because our defensive systems were not able to intercept 100% of these projectiles from Iran. So they are causing damage. But on top of that, the people need to be alerted and always surrounded and close to a bomb shelter. There are no schools. My kids are back to the Zoom days with the remote learning from the teachers. And only essential work positions are going to their office, such as news, medical, and electricity, food, and stuff that we know from the days of the COVID vaccine regulations here in Israel. And this is in order to protect the nation and the people of Israel from an Iranian strike. This is the feeling of the country at this moment. But saying that, the morale of the people of Israel is very, very high because we finally see that we are striking the head of the snake and not just fighting the proxies of this huge terror regime in Iran, and we see the successes. We see the stories of the Israeli Mossad successfully targeting the nuclear scientists, the head of the IRGC, their intelligence headquarters in the heart of Tehran. And above all, we see that the Ayatollah regime and the leader of this terrorist regime, Ayatollah Ali Ayatollah Khamenei, is hiding in bomb shelters, in bunkers, because he's afraid of an Israeli strike on him personally. Okay, Israel is basically peeling the layers and destroying the nuclear capabilities of Iran, one bomb, one strike at a time. And we are ready for the help of the United States that we are receiving reports are on the verge of joining us in destroying this evil regime and completely terminating their nuclear program and their ballistic missile program, Eric. Keep us in your prayers, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Hey, number one, thank you from all our TBN viewers for getting up in the middle of the night with us. Your family's been in bomb shelters. Yair, we can't thank you enough. Number two, we've got a quote from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here. If people think Israel's going to stop, think again. Here's what Bibi said earlier. We will not have a second Holocaust, a nuclear Holocaust. We already had one in the previous century. The Jewish state is not going to have the Holocaust meted out on the Jewish people. It's not going to happen. Never again is now, and we had to act now. So although the Iranian regime is reportedly begging for a ceasefire now, Yair, I think Bibi is committed to finishing the job. And the consequences, if he doesn't, are very dire for Israel and for the free world, I believe.
Yeah, definitely, Eric. I mean, some people say this is not our war, this is Israel's war. Why do we, the United States or other countries in Europe, need to fight your war? And it's very important to understand that in the Middle East, when somebody is threatening to destroy you, and when I say you, I don't mean Israel, I mean Israel and the United States. Remember, Iran keeps calling Israel the small Satan and the United States the big Satan. They have been funding terror groups that disrupt all the maritime shippings from the east to the west. They are destabilizing this entire region. You don't want to give this sort of regime the strongest weapon that this world has, which is the nuclear bomb. Yeah. So we reached a point that within a few weeks, Iran could have 15 nuclear bombs. Eric, just imagine that one bomb can destroy and take out the whole country of Israel and more than that. Yeah. So within 2 weeks, according to the Israeli estimates, Iran was ready to have 15 of these bombs. So now we had to take matters to our own hand and strike these centrifuges, these nuclear facilities, the scientists. And so far, we have pushed back their nuclear program years of work, years of knowledge, years of equipment was destroyed. The job is not done yet.
No, it's been a stunning operation, Yair, and helpful reminder for everyone watching, Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey. It's that small. So Israel doesn't get second chances here. It must finish the job. Yair, thank you so much. You'll be with us throughout the next 90 minutes with on-the-ground updates from Jerusalem. God bless, my friend. Stay safe. We'll talk to you again shortly. Yair Pinto. Joining us now from Israel is the former international spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces. He is now a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, D.C. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus is with us. Jonathan, always great to see you. You and I have been talking about this for years. The coming showdown between Israel and the Iranian regime. The moment of reckoning has now arrived, and the Iranian regime appears to be, and its military machine right now, Jonathan, appears to be in tatters. 1/3 of their ballistic missile launchers eliminated by the IDF. Countless Iranian top military generals. The Natanz nuclear site in ruins. What's your assessment thus far of Operation Rising Lion?
Shalom, Eric, and shalom to everybody watching. Yes, this is not the first and not the 10th time that we speak about it. And of course, this has been in the making for the better part of, I would say, 20 or 25 years. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been waging an indirect and lately direct war against the state of Israel. the Islamic Republic has an official goal to annihilate the State of Israel, or as they refer to it, the Zionist regime, and they were sprinting in order to achieve nuclear weapons capabilities. I don't think that the Iranians will achieve not the destruction of Israel and not nuclear weapons. What Israel is doing now is disassembling the Iranian regime's ability to project force, but also to project control over Iran itself. Israel has blasted its way and has aerial superiority in Iranian skies, unprecedented, by the way, in history. No other country has ever done that and achieved that against Iran. And Israeli airplanes are attacking military targets and nuclear targets according to a very well-defined and researched list of targets. Israel expanded the types of targets that it is striking, and it is now striking the television or the propaganda arm of the Iranian regime for the first time. And this is after most of the Supreme Command was taken out. Many key nuclear scientists were taken out. And as I said, air defenses. So this is a historic moment. I don't use that reference lightly, but this is an historic moment. And I really hope that this will lead to stability and prosperity in the Middle East for everyone.
Yeah, Jonathan, well said. I think we are on the verge of a new Middle East. It's ultimately exciting. And just to draw the distinction here, Israel called for civilians in Tehran, the Iranian capital, to evacuate. Israel goes to great pains to avoid any civilian casualties. On the other hand, Iran, Jonathan, is intentionally targeting Israeli civilian centers. Talk more about that. Iran, again, they are intentionally aiming to kill women and children, civilians.
Yeah, the numbers tell the story, and no volume of Iranian rhetoric and propaganda can convince anybody differently. Israel so far has 28 fatalities, all of them civilian. 590 people have been wounded, almost all of them civilian. And that is, of course, a direct result of massive Iranian missile fire at Israeli cities. The images are unimaginable. You know, you look at the scenes, the impact scenes, entire residential buildings, 7, 8, 10 floor buildings, when they get a direct hit, we've seen them crumble and disintegrate. And that is, of course, because the Iranians are using ballistic missiles. These are objects almost as big as an American school bus. They weigh about a ton and about 500 kilograms of high-level explosives at the tip of each one of them. Now, Israeli air defenses have been very effective, and they've shot out of the sky most of what the Iranians have fired at Israel. Sadly, the Iranians have found a way to kind of overwhelm air defenses and locally in a certain geographic area overwhelm the air defenses and get a few missiles to slip through. But by and large, despite the fact that we have had 24 casualties, the defenses are working. Israel, supported by the U.S., actively supported by the U.S., is defending itself. This is, again, an opportunity for me as an Israeli to express gratitude for the defense collaboration between Israel and the U.S., for the fact that we are using weapon systems that were developed together, Israel and the U.S., and most of it was U.S. funding. And this is tremendously important. And by the way, return on investment, all of the weapon systems are now combat proven, and a lot is modified as we speak. And that's, of course, a great thing for America, because the weapon systems that were built together are now feeding back into the American system as well.
Yeah, great breakdown. And I just keep thinking, Jonathan, these ballistic missiles we're seeing bombard Haifa, Tel Aviv, the Galilee, what if they were nuclear tipped? That was the end game for the Iranian regime. And I think the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, alluded to this earlier this morning. Israel right now is really acting as the first line of defense for all of Western civilization. They're fighting the good fight for the entire free world on the front lines. The end game. I know we're still obviously in the midst of it. There's much work to be done by the IDF. Does the end game look like a complete dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program, a massive dent in its ballistic missile capabilities? There's already reports that Iran, behind the scenes, is scurrying for a ceasefire. What is a satisfying end game for Israel here in this operation?
Yeah, so two parts to that. What I would have liked to hear from the Germans, the French, the Brits, and the Canadians and all other democracies in the world would have been, thank you, Israel. Thank you, Israel. We stand by Israel with no ifs and buts, but we support Israel because you are doing the heavy lifting and the dirty work for the free world. And if we put this into historical context, this will be the third nuclear military program that Israel takes care of in the Middle East that belong to crazy Muslim regimes. 1981, Osirak, 2007, Deir az-Zor, so Iraq and Syria, and now 2025, Iran. No other country has done that, and even though critics around the world will blame Israel for taking aggressive action, this is preemptive action, and this is actually promoting stability and promoting peace and doing a good thing for the world, for the region, and for the world. And I think that Israel should get much better support. Now, endgame, here it becomes interesting because officially Israel speaks about the nuclear program and taking care of an existential threat. I believe that. But I think that there's another end game here beyond the things that you so correctly pointed out, ballistic missiles and their ability to continue to fund terror organizations around the world and in the Middle East. Those are very important targets. But I actually believe that Israel would be very happy to see the Iranian regime go under. I don't think that Israel has the capacity to execute regime change. Iran is a nation of about 100 million. We're less than 10 million. We are about 10 million, and they're far, far away. But I think that Israel would definitely be happy, relieved, and it would favor Israel and the region if the Islamic regime of Iran would indeed be toppled by the Iranian population. Israel isn't operating in order to achieve that yet, but it's clear, and anybody who is a moderate studier of history knows that any non-democratic regime, the enemy number one of any tyrant is first and foremost the people that they oppress. And the Iranian people, as they see the Iranian regime weakened, exposed, vulnerable, and not capable of defending itself against an external force, maybe they will be motivated to reclaim their freedom, reclaim governance, and to get rid of the Islamic regime. That's still in the future, but I think there's a chance that things will go that way.
Yeah, and they are the main victims, the Iranian people, of this evil regime, Jonathan. And people need to know, prior to 1979, that Islamic Revolution, Iran and Israel had a great relationship. We pray that's on the horizon once again. Jonathan Conricus, thank you so much, my friend. Stay safe. God bless you, Jonathan. Great breakdown. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Eric. Shalom.
What a great breakdown from our good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Now, folks, you just got the Israeli military perspective there from Lieutenant Colonel Conricus. Coming up in a minute, General Michael Flynn, former National Security Advisor under President Trump, will join us with the American perspective of this war, why it matters to you here in the United States. But up first, speaking of President Trump, here's what he's saying about the Iran-Israel war. Quote, "It looks like Iran isn't winning this war. They need to talk before it's too late. Will they come back to the negotiating table? We shall see." Okay, before we join General Michael Flynn, folks, we're going to take a look live at Jerusalem, God's one and only holy city. Jerusalem is mandated. It's a mandate for every believer, every Christian, every follower of Jesus to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So let's take a moment right now before we go to General Flynn and do exactly that. A moment of silence here to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Joining us now is the one and only General Michael Flynn, former National Security Advisor during President Trump's first term and author of the brand new book coming out June 24th, pardon of innocence. General, great to see you. Hey, I think you've taken a very common sense, America first perspective to the war between Israel and Iran right now. You've said, look, I don't want to see wars in the Middle East, but this is a war of necessity for Israel. You can't have Islamic fanatics in Tehran with nuclear weapons. And by extension, it seems Israel's actions are making the West and America safer. What have you seen so far? What's your breakdown?
So here's where I'm at. I mean, this is one where we can no longer have this threat of a nuclear-armed Iran with a real tyrannical, and I call it psychopathic because the way that they've demonstrated the way that their regime has been run for the last 50 years almost. They have they're still the leading state sponsor of terrorism, according to our own country. They have these surrogate organizations in Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and Israel has come to a point where the development of the nuclear capability inside of Iran was getting too close. And there have been some tests, there have been some things that the Iranians were doing that clearly got the attention of Israel, and Israel has been paying very, very close attention to this. It's not a matter of, they're years away or they're decades away. We've been hearing this for a long, long time. They were very, very close. Now, I say it could have been days or weeks, but once you get to a point of uranium enrichment, once you get past a certain percentage of enrichment, then the enrichment moves very fast. And the ability for some engineers and scientists to marry up ballistic missile capabilities, which obviously Iran has plenty of, and a nuclear warhead, it becomes very simple. It becomes a very simple engineering problem. And then you have a nuclear weapon, and you're part of that nuclear club, and the whole dynamic changes because Iran has stated publicly many, many times that they, not only that Israel is their enemy, but that they have every desire to annihilate an entire population and an entire nation off of the map. I mean, they've said it almost verbatim. So under the Bibi Netanyahu leadership in Israel, they finally made the decision, and rightly so, and they're going this alone. And I say this alone with, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Eric, because everybody's like, well, we don't want to get mired, we, the United States, we don't want to get mired in another Middle East war, and we don't. But I want everybody, all of your listeners, to know that we provide intelligence capabilities, we provide weapon systems, we provide training, we provide education to all of the countries in the Middle East except for Iran. And we've been providing billions and billions of dollars to Egypt, to the Saudis, to other of the, to the Jordanians, to the Lebanese, I mean, on and on and on. So every single Arab country in that region has been getting billions of dollars in weapon systems, intelligence, training, and education as a minimum. So for us, for anybody to go, well, Israel this, Israel that, hey, Israel is getting the kinds of capabilities that Israel deserves, and Israel demonstrates a very mature way to apply them and has always been very good about that over many, many years. A lot of people have a lot of differences of opinion, smart people, but I'm telling you, I'm sitting here as a guy who has spent 5 years of my life in combat operations, most of it in that region. My career as a military intelligence officer was really spent on the coup that occurred in 1979 when Jimmy Carter was president, and then we continued to face the Soviet Union until they collapsed, and now we face this brutal dictatorship in Iran. And I think Israel has gotten to a point in history where they've said enough is enough, and so we're going to go in for regime change, and that's what they ought to. That's what that's what Israel should say. I mean, that's what I'm telling you, your audience, that this is about regime change. It is about making sure that Iran never has the capability to have a nuclear weapon, and we should make sure that that is the case because this is that particular regime was a psychotic regime. And the end of the day, the objective, the clear objective to me, and it's always been this, has been regime change. Yeah. Once we have regime change, that changes the dynamic historically, particularly if the new regime that comes in under Iran is aligned with the West and better aligned with the United States. That changes the global dynamic of the world, when it comes to the U.S.-China relationship and this adversarial relationship that we are now having with the Chinese because of a variety of factors happening here at home with things like the introduction of fentanyl, bioweapons, et cetera. So the whole trade issue that Trump is going through. Yeah. And it also, a Western-aligned Iran also can bring them closer to countries like India. It can bring them closer to nation states like Israel. It can give them an opening to other markets in Europe instead of being constantly sanctioned because of the psychopaths that were currently running this country, and that's Iran.
Hey, I wanted to ask you real quick. Of course, Iran refers to Israel as the little Satan, but they referred to America as the great Satan. The regime was developing intercontinental ballistic missiles that could travel across oceans and reach the United States. It seems to me that Israel is doing the world a favor in this operation. Can you talk a bit about how Iran's really been in a state of war with the United States? I think back to 79, of course, which you mentioned, the embassy takeover, 1983, the Marine barracks bombing. I think of hundreds, at least, of our brave soldiers killed in Iraq thanks to Iranian IEDs over the past several years. Iran had a bullseye, ultimately, it seems, on the back of the great Satan, in its words, the United States. Yeah, and you know, places like Khobar Towers, the Houthis shutting down the what's called Bandar al-Abab, the straits that comes out of the Red Sea down in the south into the Arabian Sea, the Suez Canal, that dynamic changes. So there's some very geopolitical issues that are in play that you're touching on, Eric. And the Iranians have been doing nothing but hurting and causing mayhem in this part of the world. And you mentioned the intercontinental ballistic missiles, which are not out of the question for Iran to have developed under the Khomeini regime. So, you know, I think what's happening is actually necessary at this point in time. You know, the Israelis are not asking for army divisions or Marine regiments. They're not even asking for naval carrier groups, although I understand that the United States, President Trump has made the decision to put a third carrier battle group in the region. But that's a lot of the reasons why we're putting more forces into the region right now is because we have thousands of men and women and families that are stationed there. I mean, people don't realize it. I mean, we have thousands still in Iraq. We have thousands in Jordan. We have thousands in the Saudis. I'm talking about political diplomats, military, and some families, as well as an American diaspora of business community. So there's a lot of Americans that are in that region for all the right reasons, and President Trump just does not want them threatened during a time of heightened tension. General Michael Flynn, well said as always. Common sense in times where common sense is not so common. As always, from our good friend General Michael Flynn, Pardon of Innocence, June 24th. Pick it up. General Flynn, thank you for this great breakdown. Thank you for your service to our country. God bless, my friend. We'll see you again soon. All right. Thanks, Eric. See you. Folks, it was just over a month ago that Matt Crouch, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, and Pastor Ed Young Sr. sat down to talk about Iran, and boy, were they ahead of the curve. Take a look.
Mr. Ambassador, when you start talking about Iran, I remember that was Prime Minister Netanyahu's kind of answer when I said, day one of your 6th term as Prime Minister, what do you need to accomplish for the future of Israel and on behalf of the state?
Well, the first 3 things are easy. Block Iran, block Iran, block Iran.
I have a very dear pastor friend, Ed Young, who represents a part of the American mindset that we're tired of having to listen about this Iran. Your concerns in regard to Iran, Pastor Ed?
Very clear, and I would say this to the ambassador, and I think I could speak for 90% of the citizens of the United States of America. Something must be done. Now is the hour to take care of the head of the snake.
Okay,
whatever this works.
Well, there you go.
The head of the snake comment, Mr. Ambassador.
Yeah. It is a snake. For 46 years,
the Iranian regime, and I want to be real clear in distinguishing between the Iranian regime and the Iranian people.
Right.
The Iranian people are beautiful, wonderful, well-educated, thoughtful people that are under the oppression of the Ayatollah since 1979. But for 46 years, the regime has threatened Israel, threatened the United States, and they've never done one good deed that I can come to my mind to think of. There comes a point at which you would ask yourself as Americans, how many missiles would need to come into Houston, Texas, before Americans would say, okay, we've had
Enough.
300 and that's enough. How many missiles into any of our cities would it take before we said, that's it, don't let this happen again? It wouldn't take thousands, and that's what Israel has faced. It would take one. It would take one. If Toronto sailed a missile into Buffalo, if Mexico City sent one into Houston, if Tijuana sent one into LA, I'm telling you, one missile, and all of America would stand up and say, okay, Mr. President, that's it. Stop this, and stop it now.
Yeah.
Folks, number one, two things here. Number one, how great is it? How God-ordained is it that a Bible-believing Christian, our good friend, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, is now America's top diplomat in Israel, literally for such a time as this. Only God. And of course, he hosted the great Huckabee show here on TBN for years. Now he is America's top man in Israel at the most consequential moment in Israel's modern history. Without a doubt, prophetic times, Bible times, and Mike Huckabee, a dear friend of TBN, is there. I can't think of a better ambassador to help navigate the U.S. and help navigate President Trump through these tumultuous times in the world's most chaotic and volatile region, the Middle East. Number two, Ambassador Huckabee made a very important point there with Matt, Laurie, and Pastor Ed Young. The Iranian regime is the enemy, not the Iranian people. I've been saying here on TBN over the past few days that I've been reminding you, I should say, that Iran is a Bible land. Guess what? Modern day Iran, that was ancient Persia from your Bible. Esther, Mordecai, Darius, Cyrus, that is Iran. It's an ancient and proud civilization that's been hijacked over the past 46 years by this wicked regime, the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, and the Iranian people, large majorities of whom oppose and detest this regime, are the main victims of it. That regime's jackboot has been on the necks of the Iranian people, again, for decades. They may finally be about to be freed from that yoke. And here's something encouraging to hold on to during this program and as we go forward into the next days and weeks and months as this situation continues to develop. The Iranian church is the world's fastest growing. Yes, against all odds, living under one of the world's most repressive regimes, a regime that murders, tortures, imprisons Christians. The gospel is spreading. You can't stop the gospel. It's growing by leaps and bounds, largely in underground churches in Iran. Be encouraged. God is moving in this Bible land, once known as Persia, now known as Iran. Okay, you may be wondering, what's happening? The Middle East, they're at war again. Israel and Iran going toe-to-toe. Well, our point man on the ground in Israel, no one gives a better breakdown on the state of play and the situation than our TBN Israel correspondent, Yair Pinto. He is, of course, co-host of our weekly show, Boots on the Ground, seen right here on TBN every Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Hey, folks, he also has a huge, and I'm not overstating that, YouTube channel, the TBN Israel channel, over 1.3 million subscribers. We encourage you to subscribe. But Yair filed today a great on-the-ground breakdown of the situation, what comes next, and most importantly, why it matters to you and the body of Christ. Take a look.
This is Yair Pinto bringing you the unvarnished truth from Israel. Over the last 3 days, Operation Am Kelaviv has rewritten the Middle Eastern rulebook. The Israeli Air Force has carved an aerial highway 1,500 kilometers straight to Tehran, hammering 720 military installations and another 170 targets, and the count is still climbing. Tonight alone, dozens of surface-to-surface missile batteries in western Iran were leveled, even while a fresh barrage was in the air towards the Israeli cities. The goals are simple: cripple the Iranian rush to the bomb and silence its ballistic missile arsenal. Large complexes such as the Fordo are still standing and rockets continue to fall. Yet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the nuclear program has already been delayed quite a bit, buying precious time. Israel is therefore bracing for many more days of war. Most sorties shredded missile bases and air defensive shields, securing Israeli air superiority. A covert Mossad explosive drone hub inside Iran struck from below, while precision bombings decapitated the regime's command. Chief of Staff Muhammad Bagheri, IRGC Commander Hussein Salami, Air Force Chief Amir Ali Hajizadeh, Intelligence Head Muhammad Khazemi, and Deputy Hassan Muhakak all are confirmed dead. Senior Advisor Ali Shakami also fell to erase nuclear know-how. 14 atomic scientists, including former Atomic Energy Chief Faridun Abbasi, were assassinated in many car bombs. Key sites in Tehran were destroyed: IRGC headquarters, a centrifuge plant, the Defense Ministry, and the City Police headquarters. A central fuel terminal erupted in a wall of fire. This is a warning against further missile fire on Israeli civilians. Mirhabad Airport lost a fighter jet hangar. The Bid Ganech medium-range missile base was wrecked, and air defenses around the capital and across western Iran were suppressed. Beyond the capital, the pounding continues. Natanz, the heart of enrichment, took a significant damage, and Isfahan Weaponization Center was destroyed. Tabriz airspace, home to the 3 fighter squadrons, was wiped out, and an underground depot near Kermanashah, storing Qiyam 1 and Fateh 110 missiles, was struck. In the southwest, the South Fars gas processing hub, the world's largest field, shared with Qatar and with Bandar Abbas gas site, were hit, as was a ballistic missile factory in Shiraz. The most distant blow landed 2,300 kilometers from Israel near Mashhad, where an Iranian tanker aircraft used for in-flight refueling was destroyed. Iran's reply has been deadly. A rocket salvo on Israel's center district, killing 8 and wounding 81. Petah Tikva mourns 4 dead and 45 injured. Bnei Brak, 1 dead and 36 hurt. 3 more bodies were recovered after a nighttime strike in the city of Haifa in Israel. And across the country, 692 residents are now homeless. Israel's multi-layered shield intercepts over 90% of incoming missiles, but those that slip through carry heavy warheads that shatter homes and families. Israel's achievements are staggering, yet the cost is high. By erasing launchers, scientists, and commanders, Jerusalem intends to break the cycle and deter further barrages, and perhaps inspire Iranians to challenge their rulers. The operation continues around the clock, and pilots are already lifting into the night for the next wave. Keep praying for the soldiers on the front lines, for the safe return of our hostages, for the families uprooted in the north, and above all, for the peace of Jerusalem.
Folks, again, Israel is the first line of defense for Western civilization. No one knows that better than Behnam Ben Taleblu. He is the senior director of the Iran program and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He joins us now. Behnam, always great to see you. Are we at a moment, we've been talking about this a bunch over the past few days, are we at a moment where we really could see what many have been praying for decades, the collapse of the Iranian regime? Could it happen?
Well, always a pleasure to be back with you. To be brutally honest, there's a lot of factors that are still being determined here, but that's where a lot of the evidence is pointing to. It doesn't mean that there'll be a collapse all of a sudden, but one does have to remember that what happened in Syria, there were just several fateful weeks at the tail end of 2024 that saw a radical transformation in Syria and the end of a 50-plus year reign of terror in that country. So as the hold of that government gets weaker, as all of the things it's invested national resources into go up in smoke, as the Israelis are showing, the chances of what you said, sir, increase. But I want to stress that it's the chances, because this regime is wounded, but it is still lethal.
Yeah, key point. And Behnam, you mentioned Syria. It seemed to me that when Bashar al-Assad called it quits and fled Syria, then it was game over. Ayatollah Khamenei, look, Bibi said today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that Khamenei may not be off limits. And if Khamenei was gone, the war maybe would end tomorrow. Is there a chance that Khamenei could be in Israel's targets? I know reportedly President Trump has said he didn't want to see that, but it seems, again, if the head of the snake, Khamenei, was gone, it really could be a new day.
There's certainly that chance. One wonders what would happen to the rest of the military command and control in such a place. But nonetheless, I think when any Israeli official, particularly in the post-October 7 Middle East, is saying that all options are on the table, it would behoove us as kind of foreign observers to understand that indeed all options are on the table. There's an X factor here as it relates to the public commentary about the Israelis going after the supreme leader, or allegedly considering going after the supreme leader of Iran. And that is the negotiating power that gives our deal maker in chief and commander in chief, Donald Trump, who can literally now tell the Ayatollahs, the only thing that is standing between you and certain death is me. And potentially this might be something the president may try to weaponize in his commentary of, dismantle your program or die, or dismantle or watch the Israelis dismantle it and potentially your regime for you. But all of this is very, very fluid under the stress.
Yeah, it seems that no matter what, when the dust settles, Behnam, that Iran's going to be severely weakened. What does this do? Look, they were feeling great about themselves on October 7, 2023. They and their proxies, it was kind of the zenith of their ring of fire and their moves against Israel. Now it's literally all collapsed in the span of a year and a half. It seems that when the dust settles, they limp out of this, right? No matter what the outcome is, if there's some kind of negotiation, a deal, they're coming out of this very wounded and weakened in the eyes of the world. There seems to be a new Middle East at our doorstep right now with Israel as the lone superpower in the region.
But that certainly does raise the question for us as Americans: what should be the role of America in either shaping, conditioning, or helping to benefit from what could potentially be a new Middle East? But let's not have a new Middle East be a wasteland of failed states that, again, the regime and its kind of poisonous ideology can bring onto people far away from its territory. Instead, a new Middle East should really be more about integration and accommodation and engagement between pro-American, pro-status quo forces in the region that have a vested interest in stability and prosperity. And what you've seen from the past 46 years of the Islamic Republic is by engaging in these low-intensity conflicts, which, as you've seen since post-October 7, have become quite hot and have become quite multi-front, they are now reaping what they have sown.
Yeah. You have to think that the world is now looking at Israel, although they won't say it publicly, with awe. I mean, this is a succession of stunning military and intelligence accomplishments dating back to Operation Exploding Pager, Hezbollah in Lebanon several months ago. Now this in Iran. Do you think Israel's stature just grows? And look, regional superpower for sure, but although a tiny nation the size of the state of New Jersey, Israel's flexing its muscle far above its weight, punching far above its weight on a global scale.
Indeed, and there are global ramifications and implications of that, which is why it actually behooves America to make sure that there is no daylight between it and the most important status quo defender of Western civilization in the Middle East. And that, as you mentioned, is Israel. One of the reasons the Israelis have had such a free and open and operational hand inside of Iran for years is probably not just because the regime is incompetent and ideological. That is quite true. But also because even though Iranian people are among the most nationalistic in not just in the region, but in the world, what the regime has lost by really spurning the views, values, and interests and making life a living hell for the average Iranian is that, Mossad today essentially had set up a drone base against the Iranian government on Iranian territory, and no average Iranian batted an eye. And even if you look at the social media commentary right in the aftermath of Israel strikes against major military figures in the strategic brain trust of this regime, you had the Iranian, large popular sentiment cheering on those strikes because they identified Israel as targeting their oppressors as well.
Yeah. Behnam, it seems everything's on the table right now. Great points all around, by the way. What about the Abraham Accords? Look, with Iran weakened, can we see peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, Oman, perhaps even Syria, perhaps even Lebanon? It seems that everything is possible right now that that Iranian axis is toppling in the region.
Well, certainly creates the political space for it, but call me an old world skeptic. But one of the things that actually created the political space for the initial wave of Abraham Accords, which really upgraded ties that some of these countries may have had in a more covert or private sense and moved it into the overt world, the formal diplomatic recognition world with the Israelis, was that there was indeed a rising Iranian threat. So ironically, if you have a declining Iranian threat, maybe some more of these countries may be inclined to hedge, may be inclined to over-focus on something like Gaza, for example. Who knows? But I certainly think dealing with the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism creates room for talking about stability and growth and prosperity and economic integration. But you can't have that while you have this regime literally trying to build a nuclear weapon almost, dare I say, almost in plain sight, while lobbing ballistic missiles openly at the only Jewish and democratic country in the Middle East.
Yeah, about 40 seconds left. Tough to say, obviously, but does this war stretch on days, weeks? What do you think we're looking at? Tough to say again. Best estimate, is Israel getting close to accomplishing its goals?
Tough to say, but I think the Israelis are showing no signs of stopping anytime soon. And if you had to put a label on what they're doing, it's much more than just counter-proliferation. It's something between defanging the regime and perhaps even counter-regime operations. And for that, I think they will need time. And on that, the X factor is how much time will the U.S. give? Will the U.S. intervene? And will the Iranians try to do what they always do, which is to enter with a weak hand and leave with a strong hand? That's the real fear here. If the Iranians try to buy time and say, okay, maybe we will negotiate. What will the Americans do then? What will the Israelis do then? These are the tough questions we have to ask ourselves now.
Behnam Ben Taleblu, great breakdown as always. Folks, check him out, fdd.org, and on X across social media. Behnam, great work. Keep it up. God bless. We'll see you again soon.
Bless you. Thank you.
When we want to combine geopolitical and spiritual insights, we turn to our good friends, Pastor Sammy Rodriguez and Reverend Johnnie Moore. Pastor Sam is a best-selling author, film producer, and lead pastor of New Season Church in Sacramento. And Johnnie was recently named executive chairman of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is leading efforts to distribute aid throughout the war-torn Strip. Gentlemen, always good to see you. I was saying off camera, the three of us have been talking about this for a long time. We saw this coming, this showdown between Israel and Iran. Johnnie, I'll start with you. You've been working intensively in the region for years, but especially as of late, heading up the GHF. What are your initial impressions here? It seems we could see a new region by the time the dust settles, a new Middle East.
Well, look, I think everyone is in awe of what Israel militarily has been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. I mean, Israel has wiped out multiple layers of leadership and all of the major divisions of the Iranian intelligence and military. They've taken out key nodes of influence operations, including the state broadcaster. They've dominated now the whole entire airspace over Iran. They're actually bombing Iran in broad daylight with Israeli jets flying over basically any corner. They can do whatever they want in Iran. And, the whole plan of having these proxies all over the Middle East was to keep the fight away from Iran. And over the last 18 months, Israel has managed to take out every proxy one by one. And because Iran wouldn't make a deal on day 61, Trump gave them 60 days, Israel decided they had to take the situation in their own hands. And I think everyone is absolutely in awe of what they've been able to do so quickly.
Yeah, Pastor Sam, great point, Johnny. Pastor Sam, I've been saying the world owes Israel a debt of gratitude. Once again, Israel smashed Hezbollah, Hamas, and now the head of the snake, the Iranian regime. And I would use the word, Pastor Sam, miraculous. I mean, there's a stunning military operations, but do you see the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at work here?
Yeah, listen, from beepers in Lebanon, blowing up literally Hezbollah, to planning bombs with operatives inside Tehran. I mean, who does that? Well, here's the question. Is there anything Israel cannot do? Of course, this is the culmination of failed policies from President Obama, Biden, and John Kerry. And John Kerry was leading that charge of negotiating and compromising and giving billions of dollars to the Iranians. And all of a sudden, we see Israel say, never again. And with the support of President Donald Trump, here we have Iran now, actually a recent Wall Street Journal article just a few hours ago, stating, hey, please, we would like to negotiate. Yeah. It worked. What Israel did worked. God is completely behind Israel. I mean, that's obvious. Even to the most objective of agnostics, it is obvious somehow there's divine providence behind this. And like Johnny just stated, I think it's a process. We're not done yet, but we may see a new Middle East at the end of the day.
Yeah, peace through strength works. Imagine that. And Pastor Sam, it would seem that Israel stands as the lone superpower in the region. Once Iran is knocked down a major peg, as it's been, Israel is in a very, very strong position. Not only a regional power, I would argue, but a global power.
Global power. And again, what Johnny just referenced from the military standpoint, it's pretty amazing. And some would argue, but look at the ballistic missiles that are landing right now in Tel Aviv and in certain parts of Israel. It's not a perfect dome, my friends. But if you compare and contrast what Israel was able to do and continue, they control the air over Iran right now. Put that in perspective. Israel controls the air over Iran right now. So it is the sole superpower in the region. And Eric, you're completely correct. Israel has now emerged as one of the most potent military nations with the technological bandwidth and wherewithal on planet Earth. Yeah. So to have Israel as an ally with America, that's a powerful tandem indeed.
Yeah, Pastor Sam, well said. And Johnny, look, you've been traveling throughout the region for years, but of course, especially recently, intensively. Number one, you met with the new leader of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara. Number two, heading up now the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. This is a regional war, really, Johnny. At the end of the day, as we said, Iran is the head of the snake, but this touches Syria. It touches Gaza. Could you tell us about some of the on-the-ground developments in the countries neighboring Israel now, which were Iranian satellites, but that now all seems to be out the window in a good way?
Yeah, I mean, what everyone should recognize very clearly now, given what's happened in Tel Aviv the last few days, is that it is a fact. If Iran had the nuclear weapon, Iran would have used the nuclear weapon. But Iran has been using these nuclear proxies all across the region. And one of the pieces of intelligence that has come out in recent days is that Iran not only planned on creating a nuclear bomb, they planned on supplying that nuclear bomb to proxies like the Houthis. Meanwhile, I think those of us, that focus on the future of the region, and that's my focus. That was why I was in Syria meeting with the new Syrian president, that the United States of America is all in on making sure there's a better future for Syria than the past, making sure that there's a future for people in the Gaza Strip. I mean, as Christians, I can think of nothing more Christian than having the responsibility of feeding people who need food and people who've been taken advantage of by Hamas for so many years. But here's the fact, Eric, and something Sam has already referenced. We are going to see a peaceful Middle East. That is going to be the net effect of all of this trauma. And I don't think anybody expected the Iranian piece of this to fail so quickly. But once Iran is not able or not willing to do some of the things that they've been obsessively doing for years, It sort of clears the way for a new chapter, a chapter, unfortunately, that's going to follow a terrible chapter of suffering. But my prediction is this is not a new era of conflict in the Middle East. This is the last gasp of the extremists. It's a moment of war in an era of peace.
And Johnny, you've been saying that for some time as we've been talking here on TBN over the months. You were optimistic all along that a new era was coming. By the way, to give you an idea into the window of the mindset, the evil ideology of Iran and its minions, several workers for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which you are now heading up, were murdered by Hamas last week. Johnny, we're so sorry about that. Can you tell us more about that and what it says about what Israel, and by extension, we here in America, are up against with the Iranian-led jihadist axis?
I mean, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has one mission. Our job is just to feed Gazans, and we have this incredible group of local Gazan volunteers who've been helping us feed their neighbors. And you're exactly right. Hamas attacked a bus of 29 of them. They killed at least 11 of them. They may have taken some of them hostage. They injured the rest of them. And then what's worse is Hamas went and dropped them all off in front of the hospital, Al-Nasser hospital in the Gaza Strip, and wouldn't even let the doctors and nurses come to get them. But you know, the worst thing about all of it, Eric, is that 2 days before this happened, they issued a threat. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, we asked for the United Nations, the Secretary General, all these international organizations. We said, look, we just need you to do one thing. Issue a statement, okay? You can say you disagree with our approach to aid. You can, complain about us all you want, but issue a statement condemning this threat in your name. Hamas was threatening violence in the name of the United Nations, and not a single one of those people issued a statement. And you know what? After this event, 2 days later, now here we are 3 days after these young Gazans, these brave Gazans were killed by Hamas. Not the Secretary General, not the United Nations, not any organization except for the United States of America itself has issued a statement even condemning this action. I mean, it's absolutely incomprehensible, the moral bankruptcy of these organizations. Our mission is very, very simple. We want to feed Gazans. And why Hamas did this was try to keep Gazans from coming to get our free food, because they use food for nefarious purposes. And you know what these brave Gazans did? They came anyhow. And today, this very day, we fed more people today than at any point since we opened up the operation.
Johnny, so well said. And it's really so black and white. There really are no gray areas here. Pastor Sam, it's good versus evil. Two things. Number one, it seems like, again, a unique opportunity for the region, for America and the world to have Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in office at the same time. And secondly, could you close us out in prayer?
Absolutely. It's light versus darkness. It's complacency versus conviction. Netanyahu and Donald Trump occupying space simultaneously cannot be a coincidence. Divine providence, indeed. Heavenly Father, thank you for such a time as this. You have ordained men to occupy places in government in order to advance your kingdom on earth, to protect Israel, to build a firewall against anti-Semitism, and to bring peace to the Middle East. Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, these ideologies that come from the pit of hell, will not be victorious at the end of the day, because men and women of courage and conviction, committed to a Judeo-Christian value system, are rising up in the mighty name of Yeshua. Thank you. I pray for an impermeable hedge of protection upon all of those that are right now in Gaza feeding the hungry. Thank you for the leadership of Johnnie Moore. Thank you for others that are saying, here I am, Lord, send me. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pastor Sam, thank you so much. Johnny, great job. We're praying for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation for safety, for your efforts there. Amazing. Keep up the great work, gentlemen. We'll see you again soon. God bless. Folks, continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. It's real simple. It's not me saying it. It's God Almighty saying it. It's a biblical mandate from the book of Psalms. And I think of Psalms 2, by the way. God sees the schemes of Israel's enemies, and he laughs. Israel will be just fine. Israel will not only survive, it will continue to thrive. So for our entire team at TBN, thanks for watching us. There you see Jerusalem, God's one and only holy city. Keep it in prayer. God bless you. We'll see you again soon.